subject is creation of the universe. In the previous chapter, it has been clearly explained that the transcendent entity is one infinite and its immanent principles are the sentient. The mutative and the static, by their very nature, these forces are belligerent. Their direction is haphazard, forming infinite figures with innumerable sides. Prakriti here is said to be anuchanya, and Brahma here is objectless, because there is no question of subjectivation, feeling of doer I, or objectivation, feeling of done I, and therefore Brahma is called Nirguna. Beyond all the attributes of Prakriti, in common language it is said that Prakriti has not been able to get Brahma influenced or metamorphosed here, therefore there is not even the seed of creation. If more than two forces are acting at a place, the figure of forces tends to become triangular. These belligerent forces therefore make a triangle of forces. In the initial stage, there is balance in the triangular figure. The hectazone, septazone, and other multi-sided figures have been transformed into triangles of forces, but no resultant is formed because of proper adjustment of the three types of forces. In this state of equilibrium, the triple qualities of Prakriti exist, but in a balanced state. This state, however, differs from the previous one not only in the fact that a triangle of forces has been formed, but also in the fact that in the sentient, the mutative, and the static forces are clearly distinguishable. In the previous stage of forces had no clear identity. They were flowing without any feelings. But in this triangular stage, there is a constant exchange of identities amongst the three fundamental principles, forces. This mutual exchange or transformation is called Swarup Parinam. The conversion involves no bondage. And though the sentient is penetrating into the mutative into the static, and so on, there is perfect balance here. The balanced Prakriti is addressed simply as Prakriti without any objective. Purusa is the fundamental entity at every stage. When he gets encircled by the triangle of forces, sentient, mutative, and static, though no resultant force has formed, there is a theoretical difference between the Purush Bhav in the first stage when Prakriti was Anuchunya, and the Purush Bhav in the second stage when Prakriti had stepped herself into a triangle of forces. In the later stage, not only is Purusha in a theoretical bondage of the three principles, but also there is a chance of his being expressed. Purusha has not yet metamorphosed due to equilibrium of the triangle of forces, but the chance of metamorphosis is imminent. So in spite of the fact that Purusha here is unaffected, there is a theoretical speciality in Purusha at this stage. This Purusha Bhav is called Shiva, and Prakriti Shivani or Kaushiki. Prakriti is called Kaushiki because she is the cause of origin of different koshas, which are formed later on a process of evolution. The difference between Shiva and Shivani here is merely theoretical because no actual manifestation has occurred. Practical difference between Purusha and Prakriti starts arising the moment a resultant of forces is formed. Imbalance or lack of equilibrium in the three belligerent forces causes this resultant, and metamorphosis of Purusha starts due to activation of this Prakriti. The point at which the resultant force bursts out is known as Bija in Tantra. It is called Kama Bija. Here lies the innate desire of creation. Shiva Shakti Vibhagen Jayate Srishti Kalpana, that is a Shiva and transcendental entity encircled in the triangle of forces, and Shakti or Prakriti on being acted and reacted within themselves are the cause of the divine desire of creation. This point, Kama Bija, is static and is dominated by Avidya Maya and rests within its scope of activity. This is the point wherein lies the cosmic desire. It therefore can also be termed Ichha Bij or seed of desire. The next stage after this point is the expression of desire or the expression of the resultant force, which must be in straight line, Jnana Shakti Nada, because every force expresses itself by a direction. Philosophically speaking, even though the point is dominated by the static force, further expression is due to the sentient force. Prakriti has a tremendous force, but in mainly sentient at this stage. Even though the mutative is well active within it, at this stage the flow of expression must therefore be in a straight line, because the sentient dominated force itself must be straight line. Prakriti by nature merges herself in Purush Bhav regularly but by degrees, hence the flow changes and the force of expression gradually become less and less. There is also a never-ending clash amongst the belligerent forces of Prakriti, due to which internal friction increases. Thus, due to gradual merger of Prakriti and growing internal friction known as Guna Chhog in Tantra, within Prakriti the flow ceases to be in a straight line, tends to take up curvature and attains a wavelength. The first curvature thus formed a termed Kala, Kriya Shakti. Prakriti is active from Kam Bij to the Kala and is called Bhairavi in the Nada stage, and Purusha is termed Bhairav. The conquer of the mutative over the sentient and gradual movement towards domination, second occasion, by the static force results in curvatures following the preceding curvature. Kala is followed by further formation of curvatures one after another, but each succeeding curve is not necessarily of the same wavelength as the preceding one. In fact, the difference goes on increasing as the wavelength continues to decrease. This sequence of curvature is known as Sadrish Parinam. Here the static dominated mutative Prakriti is responsible for the expression of the universe. The universe gets created. Prakriti responsible for this creation or metamorphosis is known as Bhavani. She is the energy of evolution. The metamorphosed Purush Bhav under the influence of Bhavani is called Bhav. In Sanskrit, Bhav means to become. Here Purusha has become the universe of creation, and therefore Purusha is called Bhav. The practical difference between Bhav and Bhavani is the maximum, whereas the difference between Bhairav and Bhairavi was tending from the theoretical to the practical aspect. In the first chapter on Sanchar and Prana, it was pointed out that the whole universe is the thought projection of the cosmic mind or macrocosm. The projection of macrocosm towards expression is a singular positive approach by which the cosmos appears to have taken the shape of this universe. In this path of evolutionary expression, the human psychic gets its existence at a later stage of the formation of the curvatures. The complexity of the physical curvature goes on increasing, yet it is very near the point of its descent. The mental body is much more subtle and can by sadhana or spiritual practice trespass and contract the force of avidya maya and process forth to come under the influence of vidya maya, the force of cosmic attraction, mental liberation or mukti is possible this way. Non-qualified liberation or moksha is, however, only possible if the mental body, starting from the crudest mental subjectivity of the physical body, can by any force retrace against the singular positive force emanating due to the thought projection of the macrocosm. This force against the singular positive force must be a negative one. Hence, the path of non-qualified spiritual practice which can reach final moksha is always the path of negativity. The theoretical negative force with its fundamental negativity which tends towards the final merger into Purusa for attaining moksha is called Kul Kundalini, the coiled serpentine. Since Kul Kundalini is the negative force of the unit body, it is different for each individual. As the sadhana is more or less for the psychophysical liberation, in the initial stage its starting point must be in the crudest manifestation. It must reside in that portion of the physical body from which the crudest matter, Chiti Tattva of the body is controlled. The starting point of the Kula Kundalini, therefore, is in the Muladhara. It is a fundamentally negative in character, and its starting point is the negative Kama Bija of the living being, just as the point from which the positive resultant force of Prakriti got expression is the Kama Bija or Ichha Bija of the cosmic being. The arena in which the Kula Kundalini resides is known as Kama Peeth. The starting point of the fundamental positivity, that is the Kama Bija of the cosmic being, is on the back of Sambhu Ling, and that of negativity on the back of Swambhu Ling within the self of the yoga sadhaka or one who practices the scientific method of spiritual approach. With the help of the Kula Kundalini, the force of fundamental negativity fights out, the aggressively rises up against the force of avidya maya and thereby gets domination over the flow of fundamental positivity. This path of non-compromising aggressive spirituality is the only way to ultimate openness with infinite consciousness. 3rd June 1959, Jamalpur.